Welcome back to Life, Love, and Real Estate. Daniel Palmer, LaCressa Morrow, back again to help you navigate these streets, be it for realty or for life and love. LaCressa, how's it going today?
It's going. February is here. Came really
February
fast.
is
So
here.
still adjusting.
And
How
allow me to
about
be
you?
the latest to say to you, Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month. Happy month of love as well, right? It's Black History, and we get the double whammy of Valentine's Day if that's your thing. So yeah, Black History and love. Gotta love that.
I'm not a Valentine's Day guy. I fortunately found a partner who's also not a Valentine's Day person, so it works out for us. But this month always been really weird for me. I love Black History Month. I love Black History, but 28 days. Can I get 30? Can I get a full month? Can I get a calendar month, please?
There has been progress. It was a week. So it was a week, and then we now have a month. And then, we have federal holidays now that we did not have before. So
as of this recording.
So as we always want, and I would say need more, we've definitely seen progress over time. And as we know, progress can be slow and sometimes reversed. So the fact that we are here and we are celebrating Black history, and there are still businesses and things and corporations who are honoring this is still a victory to be had. It doesn't always feel like a victory, but it definitely is some kind of victory. So
100%.
That's my half full perspective.
That's a beautiful perspective, and it's one that we need. This is Black history is American history. You don't have America without Black people. And if you want to know more about our personal Black histories, make sure you check out episode 1. We talk a lot about how we got to where we are today, who we are as people, introduce ourselves, had a great time with it. But today we're going to talk about and look through the lens of Black history, but at real estate, because I know one of the reasons I do this job is because there is no faster, greater, more dependable pathway to generational wealth than homeownership. And when you look at the history of Black housing in this country, there's a lot of learned and earned distrust. And what's more important, though, I think, is to focus on is the pathways forward, because, again, that's one of the reasons why I get up and do this every day.
Yeah, so if you had seen episode 1, or as you listen to us more, you'll know about our backgrounds even more. So I come from a military family, so we were constantly moving. My mom met my dad in the latter part of his career, so we moved a little less than, say, my other cousins and things like that. But there was always housing involved, even if you are a part of the military, depending on your rank, depends on what housing is provided for you. And so, yes, housing has always been a part of our life. But I do remember when we lived in an apartment that across from a school that I thought was a college because I was so young. And just how it's changed over time into where my grandmother lived in subsidized housing all of my life. And as a kid, I didn't even know that it was subsidized housing. Right. It was just where my grandmother lived and where our family friends lived, and I didn't know otherwise. So, housing has a large perspective of how you view homeownership or renting or just having a place to live and having some security. So, yeah.
I didn't come from a family that moved a bunch. I guess historically, my personal branch of the family moved a little bit, but like my mother grew up in a house that her father built in Natchez, Mississippi. My grandmother had a little hair salon in the front room, and they raised a bunch of kids in that house. My father's side, because I like to tell us all Black culture is Southern culture because of the Great Migration. So when my grandparents on my father's side moved to Gary, Indiana, they were able to live in a certain part of town. They bought a house there. They ran businesses there. My grandfather worked in the steel mill right down the street from the Jacksons. They all went to Roosevelt High School, like my father and my uncle did. And I think that one of the things I love talking about this is because Black history is not history. It's not that far away. Like my uncle Stephen, my name is Daniel Stephen Palmer. My middle name is from my uncle Stephen, who was the first Black graduate of Purdue's pharmacy school.
Huh.
And so when you hear about first, it's not that far away. It's right. It is in our homes. It's in our lives. We are living Black history.
They're still being first. So I just saw recently that in New York, they named the first Black Michelin chef. cannot remember his name, and I apologize for that. And I love food, but that was just fascinating. So we are still getting first, because of our complicated history. And so it's cool. I think also I saw recently about a Black snowboarder who's doing some phenomenal things as well. I think a few Olympics ago, there was a Black swimmer who won the gold medal. And, always the jokes that Black people don't swim or don't know how to swim. And when it comes to Black women and our hair, we definitely stay out of the water or we get our hair braided down for our vacation braids, as they say, whenever you're going on vacation. So yeah, there's still unfortunately, we're still being first in some things that we've never been exposed to or had access to widely before.
And
so
it's so funny when you look at the history of the things you're talking about, how directly tied it's been to segregate, like the axiom Black people don't swim. You want to talk about the two most segregated places in any town historically, it's been church and the pool.
Absolutely.
And so, like, a lot of it was Black people don't swim. Black people aren't allowed near your pools. That's why they don't swim. They're not allowed to. My dad, again, growing up in Gary, he was all city swimming. So, like, for us growing up, it was very important that we were not afraid of the water, that we were active swimmers. I did swimming all through I did not high school, but like growing up and stuff, and like summers and stuff. So it was one of those things that I guess my dad looked at that and was like, not my kids. I refuse to let it be part of that. And that's an attitude that I think is super important today, because when you talk about, will you let the past hold you back or propel you forward? Because in doing kind of the prep for this episode, I was looking back at kind of the history of housing of Black people in this country. And obviously segregation and disenfranchisement are huge aspects of that. But one of the things that has been legally removed but still affects Black people disproportionately is the idea of redlining.
Yeah. I mean, yes, right? Like what, in 1968, they created the Fair Housing Act, right?
Yeah.
So that's mainly on a federal level. And it trickled down to the states, at least when it comes to public institutions, right? You cannot openly practice discrimination, although private institutions can kind of do what they want, right? You can't make people privately who own things privately tell them what to do. So yes, fair housing was created and was adopted by realtors, right? To become a realtor, you have to be ethical and legal, not just legal. And a part of that is abiding by fair housing, which has been having some shakeups, right? Over the last couple years, as much as we don't want to talk about politics, things have been being challenged, right? Language is changing within our industry that some people find to be an issue. Are we all, as realtors, practicing fair housing when we bring our own biases to the table and we live in communities where there may not be a lot of people who don't look like us, right? I had an agent reach out to me earlier this year or the end of last year. I think it was the end of last year, asking if I would help him craft a educational course for the National Association of Builders or something on how to talk to diverse communities, which basically means, how do I talk to colored people? How do I sell colored people, Black, brown, or whatever, housing? And I politely ignored that email. And it was not a good time for me to respond, as it was coming off of the election. So there was a lot of hangover from that. And I was also highly offended that, this is sales, this is marketing, this is creating relationships with people, not how do I create a relationship with a Black person or as someone of Asian ethnicity or whatever, right? And so it still exists. I think a lot of times agents, when they look at their clientele and see a lack of diversity within their clientele, they should probably question why that is, if that is a concern of yours, right? Like if you don't have, Black clients or brown clients or whatever, might be a reason why. It's not that you don't necessarily know how to talk to them. It's just that, what are your intentions when it comes to serving all people? And are you only serving people who just look like you and think like you?
And I can hear people now like, what the pushback? Well, why does it even matter? It matters because, again, we talk about real estate as a pathway to financial freedom and generational wealth. You got to think about it. If an entire community is ignored, then the equity grows slower, which prevents homeowners from updating or buying new properties, which leads to decline of housing stock, which leads to closing businesses, which leads to tax revenue, which diminishes school funding. All of this is connected. Like, this is one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about this, is all these pieces make up a bigger whole, and it's incumbent on individuals to not only take that ownership, like you said, like, look at yourself, like, what does your client base look like, and why is it a decision? But also, like, hey, how is this going to spin? How does this spin forward a generation from now, 2 generations from now? How is this effectiveness? And so, one of the things I loved seeing, kind of as I'm doing kind of the charts for this, was watching Black homeownership rise. Like in 2004, it was the peak of Black homeownership in America. The rate was the highest. We're at 49%, never been higher in this country. And then what happened?
Oh, 2004. Oh, the market crash.
The market crash.
And also, let's just talk about the fact that there was a lot of predatory lending happening.
Well, that's the next part I was going to bring to, because these subprime loans, when the market crash happened, they disproportionately affected Black and brown communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because those are the people who were being preyed on, because, like you said, by design, it was predatory lending.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we get the high statistic of home ownership, and then also we have a large percentage of those people losing their houses between 2008 and 2013 because of the hangover of the recession and the housing bubble, especially because of the particular loans that were happening at that time, which of course you're well versed, but from an agent perspective and coming into the market in 2005, when I got licensed, I heard nothing about how the glory days of 2002 and 2003 and 2004, and how you can list a property and sight unseen, you were getting 5 offers. I had to do very little marketing. People were buying bigger houses. This is realtors, by the way. They were buying bigger cars. Land Rovers became the agent car when I entered into real estate in 2005. If you were a mega agent, you were driving a Range Rover.
Wait, I don't mean to cut you off. Hold on. So if I'm a first-time home buyer and you put me in a Range Rover to go show me houses, like that's the world we were living in?
Yeah, that's where we were living in. So when I came into the market, it was all about what type of car you had and how you presented yourself, right? So the better car you had, the more successful agent you were, because we were putting people in cars. This is pre-COVID. So you were picking up your client, you were driving them around, you were having conversations with them as you were going to these homes. So you can get to know them, right? That was just that was business practice of that time. COVID kind of ended that with, I ain't getting in the car with y'all, breathing the same air.
Strangers sharing air.
We'll meet you at the house, and here's your mask, and here's my mask, and here's some sanitation. So then what was happening too is that, so agents are making hand over fist.
Right.
They're just wanting deals. Lenders are pre-approving people without any real information. They're getting 100%.
Got a pulse, get a loan.
Right. They're doing 80-20 loans, which means 80% for the first mortgage and 20% for the second mortgage, or 80, whatever, if they're putting 3% down or 5% down, and then presenting this as these homes are going to appreciate so fast that even though you can barely make the payment right now, right, you can, your equity is going to save you. My first real estate deal was one of the scariest deals, because I was representing my uncle and my aunt, and they had a house in Stone Mountain. And it was the couple who bought it came off of work, and she had on like a nursing outfit. I think he had on a construction outfit. And I remember seeing the numbers before, and this was a $90,000 house or $100,000 house. It wasn't as expensive. This is, 2005.
Right.
And the interest rate that they had on that loan and the 80-20, it felt in my soul that they were not going to be able to keep that house. And I could not say anything because I did not represent them. I did not have any relationship with the lender. I don't even know what happened to them afterwards. I hopefully they were able to hold on to their home. But there were some scary things that were happening. And anytime there is a way to make money, they're going to make money off of the most underrepresented communities possible, because we also don't have lawyers, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to go into rich neighborhoods and do subprime loans because their lawyers are going to destroy you. So when you don't have that type of covered representation, it's easy for someone to take advantage of you.
When you came, so as you were talking, I got thrown back to my childhood because my mother was a realtor. And
Mhm.
so she was a realtor in Atlanta. And the way she got into the industry was our next door neighbors had to move for a job thing. And they were like, "You're the only person in the city I still trust. Will you help us move this house?" She helped them with that, ended up getting her license and worked at Harry Norman all through my childhood. Every time they walked in a client who was black or brown, they found Diane Palmer's desk. And it's like, as you were talking about kind of the ethics around it, but it's one thing to have rules in place, another thing to apply them in your actions and in your lives. It's so interesting because, again, I hadn't thought about, I was maybe 8 or 9. I had seen it, but I hadn't really thought about it since then. But that's wild. How have you seen
It
that
still
shifting?
happens.
It still happens?
I mean, of
Yeah.
course it does, right? Like people come with their own biases and they make assumptions that and don't get me wrong, of course, like yes, in a sense on the first regular basis, like just as an initial thing, like, oh, you're black, I'm black, okay, cool. At the same time, I don't rock with all black people. You don't rock
Right.
with all black people. I don't rock with all people in general. Like your
Exactly.
people are your people. Um, I think I've been fortunate enough to have a diverse clientele, but I've always worked in diverse areas of life. And so it does make a difference. I mean, I think that there has to be a level of comfort with your client.
Right.
Um, at the same time, yeah, I think it happens quite often. And I think the opposite also happens as well.
Right.
When I used to sit on site, that's how I kind of started my career really, as far as when I started making money, was sitting on site and doing on-site sales. I was the main agent on site. There was always 2 of us, but I was kind of the constant one. There was a lot of rotation with the other
Yeah.
agents that I had. And people just assume when they walk in the door, especially if I was working with a white guy, they would assume that I was the secretary and he was the agent on staff, and I was just there to, set appointments and make sure that he's available. And so there's always assumptions and
Right.
biases that people carry. And it takes a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection to recognize those things.
So we've talked about some of the problems. We're aware of the problems. Let's talk about some solutions and things that we both practice to make sure that we're getting out there and letting people know. The first thing I love to do is anytime someone's talking about, let's do a first-time homebuyer seminar, I raise my hand because I think, and again, this is me having 2 nerdy parents. I love education. I think education, like if you can make the thing less scary, and again, we just talked about it. Some of the fear and trepidation and distrust has been earned. But at the same time, like it's important for people who are in the industry to say, hey, we are actively working against the things that got us here. We're actively trying to change these things so that when something like a crash happens, the disproportionate people who aren't harmed are the people who have the most to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about generational wealth and people who have accumulated, who are being able to say, oh, I'm the 4th generation of my family to own a home in the city or wherever, that's a different level of a hit than I'm the first time home buyer in my family. I'm the
Yeah.
first person that I know to be doing this. And I think that's a level of trepidation that comes individually as well. And again, my cornerstone is education. I love to get in front of people and say, hey, it can be scary, but let's make it less scary and more exciting, because that's what it should be, an exciting part of the time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that number one, there's information on our phones, just a few strokes away, right? So there's always ways to educate yourself online. There's plenty of places that you can go, but I think most importantly, just having a relationship with someone who makes you feel comfortable is going to allow you to trust the next steps of the process. If you're with someone that you trust, you will be able to get to the finish line. And that's honestly what it is. I mean, I think that we are both here to guide people and to consult people. We're also here to advise you in ways of you being able to trust yourself, right? So we talk about all of these relationships, like with real estate, with love, with life. Life is a relationship with yourself, and all
Right.
relationships take kind of work. And we have to be honest about our hesitations, because I find that when you call me as an agent, as a realtor, and you say you want to do something, and then I follow up with you about the things that you say you want to do, and then you start pausing and you start dodging phone calls, or you don't respond, or you take your time, then now I start to question, do you truly want this?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then there's some kind of concern that's holding you back. Grown people go after what they want at the end of the day. And they will figure out a way out of no way to get what they want if they really want it. And that's also just human nature,
Yeah.
right? So if you say you want something, but then you find yourself hesitating in doing the thing that you say you want, you either have to question, do I really want this? Or what is my fears going forward and with getting what I want, you know?
And I do think that that's a fantastic conversation to have, because there's so many both internal and external stops that we put in place when doing something like this. Because I'll be the first to admit it, when I got to my closing table, I had been in the mortgage industry for 7 years. I had been processing 40 loans a month. I knew this stuff. I got to that table, LaCressa, and I was terrified. Like, I had to really sit down and ask myself, what let me get to this point? And then something that I'm well versed in, why do I feel this way at the end of it? And so that was really kind of my first eureka moment with the thing you're talking about, is really engaging with kind of what's powering these doubts, what's powering these things. Because it's one thing to say, I'm going to push through them, and that's great. Pushing through is incredible, but it's not solving the problem. It's not addressing what's really there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as much as we talk about fear of failure, as a society, as human natures, as people, I think majority of the time, or at least as I'm getting older, I'm recognizing that it's mostly fear of success. What does it mean when it does actually happen? I am now making myself responsible for one of the biggest purchases that I've ever made in my life. This is different from having a $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 credit limit, or buying that car. And there's some expensive ass cars out there, right?
So,
At the same
yes.
time, most of the time that we think these people are out here, at least for me, I come from my dad always taught us ownership of cars. And so I was thinking that all of these people are driving around in these fancy 85, 95, $120,000 cars, that they own them. And I'm like, oh, that car payment hurts my heart. No, they're leasing them. Right. And so it is a fear of success keeps people from moving forward with what they say that they want. What does it mean on the other end once I have it? How do I maintain it? Do I deserve it? Is this the right time? All of those questions start to come up, even if in the back of our mind we're saying that we want this. Do we really want it right now? That's always the big one.
That's fantastic. That's a great way to put that. And I think that, particularly when you talk about things that are, again, larger scale, so volatile, and things are changing so fast, and things are happening so quickly, I think that one of the things that people look at housing as another one of those variables. And my entire thing has been, remove the variables. You'll be more secure in your life. You'll be happier, because you'll have less things that are you're trying to chase down or track down. And I think that when we talk about this kind of thing, it can manifest as a hindrance. They can feel it in their head as a hindrance. Oh, this is going to hold me back from doing X, Y, or Z. When really, it's a propeller. It's going to help you move forward better, stronger, and more confidently, because you've done this thing, this hard thing. And you think about any hard thing you've ever done, on the other side was something good. Like, for
Yeah.
me,
I
it
mean,
has been, at least.
it generally is. I would say. Also, I think that there's a fear that if it's not hard, then it's not meant to be either. Right. And so I think that we also have to look at it from the other side. When you have dealt with hard things all the time, right? When you weren't so blessed as others to have the same type of opportunities, access to the same type of things, when something comes easier than expected, that also seems to be untrue. And so I think that when getting to know our clients, and we have to know what side of that coin is it? Is it the fear of success, or is it, this seems too easy, what shoe is going to drop, right?
Where's the
Because
catch?
our goals, I know that for me, and I know that from knowing you, that we want to make this easy as possible for you. We want to demystify how hard it is and not have you focus on the people's horror stories. And don't get us wrong, I don't want to be dismissive. There are people who've
Right.
had horror stories when it comes to home ownership, but we are here to make it as painless as possible for you. And making it painless for some people means that it's not real and that it won't last long. So I think that we also have to look at that side of it too.
That's really well put, because I hadn't considered that. This just seems too easy. And
think about it in a sense. Have you ever known people who've never are used to receiving love? Let's put it on all the different levels, right? You're not used to receiving love, right? You weren't given a lot of affection when it comes to your family, so therefore you didn't understand it when it comes to your friends. You didn't come from a very nurturing environment. And here comes someone popping up in your life who is open and loving and kind and giving without any expectations. They're just there just to give it to you. You're gonna look at this person like they're damn crazy. Like, what's your deal? What's your hustle? Because all I know is harshness. So softness seems unreal and too good to be true. And so you'll respond with what you know, which is continued harshness, right? It's unfamiliar.
I'm going to stop this podcast here, because my therapy happens on Tuesdays, not on Thursdays, LaCressa. I don't need this today. No, I hear you
all the time, by the way. Like, anytime we have any kind of like group sessions, I end up bringing it into some kind of like.
No, but it's right, because at the core of it all, it's dealing with yourself and what you feel like you deserve, dealing with what you're accustomed to getting. And so I was not raised in a harsh place, but I was raised in a very high performance place, to where even if it wasn't external,
your performance,
internally, my value was always in my production. Whether it be on a football field or a classroom or a wrestling mat or a business setting. If I did not produce, I had no value. And so when I met my wife, who blows me away every day, she'll look at me and be like, I'm so lucky I have you. I'm like, what did I do? And she laughs at me. She's like, you were just being yourself. And it's one of those things that you have to, and I end up struggle with this to this day, knowing that you are intrinsically worthy of the love, of the possibility, of the opportunity,
of good things.
They call it imposter syndrome, I think, where you think that someone's going to realize they don't belong here and they're going to ask me to leave. I used to joke all the time that I would keep a bag packed, because in case someone's like, this isn't your life, wrong life, get out of here, Daniel. You're right. I had you going for a while. Let me get out of here. But yeah, it's one of those things that a good realtor, someone who's going to really shepherd you through the process is going to recognize that, or at least maybe not identify that and take you down that path, but say, hey, look, you're in this car. You've been pre-approved. You're looking at homes because you deserve these things. Yeah. You've worked hard enough to, damn it, you're owed these things. You owe it to yourself to see what you've earned, what you deserve. And so, and I keep saying earned, and it's just one of those things that's just a verbal crutch. But yeah, it's a real eye opener to have those conversations with someone and to recognize that, oh, it's not because of X, Y, and Z I need this thing. It's because my inherent value says I deserve it.
Yeah, okay, so I'm a faith-based person. So I'm a God person. Everyone is a little bit different, or they're not at all, or they say universe, but I'm a God person. So it took me a while to be able to stand in front of the mirror and just say that I am worthy of all of God's blessings. That's it. Just worthy, right? I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to be anything or be any one way to be deserving of all of these blessings. And I would stand there and I would cry, I would shake, I would feel internal confusion and anxiety in my body as I said it, because I truly did not believe it. I come from, like I said, we come from very similar families, even though they have different backgrounds, but military is about performance. what you do. Your performance increases your rank, which increases your pay, which increases your security for your family, right? It gets you more awards based on everything is based on performance. So I grew up as a performance-based child. My sister was raised differently than me. So I got to see a different perspective that it wasn't, she was just a hard worker. And she still is a hard worker to this day. And so it wasn't about grades. It wasn't about honor roll for her. It wasn't about being whatever. It was just, girl, get through this because this isn't your thing. But when they saw that in me, because I was raised differently, it was performance, accolades, awards, all of that stuff. And I had to honestly deprogram myself in a sense from that. Especially, and I think the time when that happened for me was pre-crash, right? This was 9/11. Do you remember the effects of 9/11?
I
And
was 16. So my effects were
okay.
like we lost them. Like it was different because I had friends in New York and I had things of that nature. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So there was a lot of, when it hit the towers, those were also like major marketplaces, right? So that was kind of like the first time the market really got hit. And then with the market crash with housing and Lehman Brothers and all of that stuff, a lot of people put their value in who they were based on what they did. So when companies were literally gone overnight and people were laid off by the hundreds of thousands of things, especially high earners, there were a lot of people committing suicide.
Yeah.
Because their whole value was based on what they did. And they were taught that their value was based on what they did. And so seeing each one of those cycles happen made me have to think about who am I outside of what I do. And made me constantly remind myself of who I am outside of what I do, because that's where you find your value. If your value is in your work and what you do, life can change in an instant. We've seen it happen all the time with people. So yeah, I don't even know where we started, but
but you're in a great place because there is. I think people need to realize that when they make what they do bigger than who they are, that's an unfillable bucket. There's always going to be something. There's no end point to that. There's no contentment or satisfaction. It's you're constantly chasing a thing and then creating a new rabbit to chase and so on and so forth. And in doing that, you can lose, like you said, that sense of self, that anchoring place, that home base, if you will, that security of home.
Oh, I know where I was going. Okay, so when it came back to the like whole faith-based stuff, I think for a long time, people's faith is based on survival. Right? God, if you help me get through this, God, if you help me get this next job, God, if you help me do these things, right? To get to a place of security. And then once you get to a place of security, your mentality has to flip, right? Now that I'm secure, I don't have to worry about the rug being pulled under me anymore because I put steps in place in order to stay in this place of security. But if you're still in this mode of thinking that I'm in survival and it could go away at any time, then even when you get the house that you deserve and that you've earned and that you worked for, it still doesn't feel secure because at any moment it could be taken away. And so it's also a change in how you see your life and how you see yourself in order to move to a more I just deserve this by being imperfectly me, versus I have to continue to work and struggle. Does that make sense?
I'm so glad everyone got to join my latest therapy session. This is great. This is the shares with the people.
I went around and about, but I come back. I do come back.
We're all growing together. I think that's really it's the idea, and I love that we came from a place of real estate and ended up in talking about self-worth and how we view the world, because inexorably, like the title of the podcast, these things are linked. These things are linked. Some of us on this call have sabotaged relationships because they thought they didn't.
No, never.
It's one of those things where when we talk about these things, we talk about security and how it has to transform how you look at yourself and your outlook. If you don't transform it, you will lose the thing that you got secured, that you will put that back at risk, because that's all you know is to live on this knife's edge of risk.
Yeah. Yeah, as someone in a new relationship, that's what yeah. That's all I can say for right now is yeah.
And someone in not in a relationship, I have to do the same things all the time. Like it's not, and that's one of the things that I love about this podcast, Love Talking to You, is because it reminds me that what you want, this peace, this contentment, this good, is not a destination. It's a process and it's a decision and it's work you put in every day. I had a friend who was like, he asked me about relationship because he's seen me and Susan and we watch us grow and change and all this other fun stuff. He says, how do you guys do it? I go, we don't ever think it's done.
Yeah.
The joke I always tell is that every November 4th, if that's not the right anniversary date, please change this and edit, Annie. Every November 4th, I joke with Susan that, hey, are you going to re-up your 1-year contract with me? Because every year I feel like I want to re-earn her love. I want to re-earn the privilege of being her husband for 1 more year. And she always laughs and it's like, I'll sign up for 20. I go, you don't want me on a 20-year deal. 20-year deal, I'll get real lackadaisical. I'll be like, I'm good. I need, but it's an outward manifestation of what you're talking about, of the need to transform my mindset, even in that place, even in that joke, to say,
Yeah.
I deserve the love, the life I've been given, I've
Mhm.
earned, and not necessarily next year it could be gone.
Listen, I just want to break it down even further is that every day is a choice.
Mhm.
Every day you choose to stay. Every day
Mhm.
you choose to show up and have lovely conversations and wonderful time, but also have difficult conversations and tough times and still choose to show up every day. And I think that people in general, as human beings, we tend to look at it as something beyond our control, as something beyond what we choose to do literally every single day, right? Like if your environment sucks, change your environment because every day you choose to go back to that same environment. If your relationship isn't going that great, you got to change it, or you change it or you leave it, right? And it's really, but staying in it means that you are choosing it. And that means that to be honest with yourself, if I'm staying in it, I'm choosing it, which means I'm responsible for the work that needs to be done in order to keep it going. Shit doesn't just happen to people, right? Like there are always warning signs. There are always self-reflection is great. Self-reflection without self-correction, I don't give a shit if you're aware of that you're an asshole. I want you to not be an asshole. How about that? You know what I mean? So thank you for recognizing that you're an ass. Now, do you want to not be an ass? That's what I care about. Because at the end of the day, how it affects me is the same, whether you were intentional about it or not. It still affects me. So if you're saying that you're choosing me, then show up to show me that you're choosing me. Same thing.
And impact over intent.
Oh, absolutely. Right. If you want this house, then do the damn work. Give me your earnest money. Respond to emails and text messages. Let's have these tough conversations. Submit your paperwork to your lender on time, right? This is what you say you want. So we are here to help you facilitate what you want. If you want to be in this relationship, you have to show up differently than what you've had in your previous relationships, because obviously if that shit worked, you would still be there. And it did. Right. And so holding on to this is what I've been doing for the last 30 years or 40 years. Awesome. How did that work out for you? Because if it was working so great, you wouldn't be here with me. Right. So every day is a choice. Every day.
And every day, like you said, that is beautifully said. Every day is a choice. Every day is an opportunity too. Because let's say you had a bad day yesterday, you can choose the next day to be better. You can choose. No, your past does not dictate your future. And I think that that's one of the best things that I've learned talking with you and working in this industry is that people will come to me and say, oh, I've got X number of stuff in my past. And I could never, but I will. But they tell me to look. And then 3 months later, they're getting keys. I'm like, well, aren't you glad you looked? Aren't you glad you didn't let what had happened be a prison and instead let it be a launch pad into something else and something new?
Or a freaking badge of honor. You know, people like that, they carry their pain Like, it's a freaking badge of honor, which ends up allowing them to be excusable for their behavior. They're not fully
Yep.
responsible for their behavior because they were abandoned or they were abused or they were neglected or they were ignored. And all of those things are horrible, not so fun things to deal with. And you're still responsible for how the hell you show up. And so I think, yeah, you have to make the choice to choose yourself when it comes to this stuff. And choose, if you say that you want to do this and you want to improve your life, then do the things that are going to improve your life. And also, if you're going to drag other people into your shit, saying that you want to do this, then do what you say you're going to do, right? Because now you're involving others and taking time, precious time, where we could be helping other people pursue what they really want to do. And I'm not saying that it always has to be perfect. Nothing is perfect.
Nothing else.
At the same time, you got to show up. You got to be in the game, as Brene Brown always says. Be in the arena.
The phrase I keep stealing from, I keep saying too much, is your mental health is not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Your situation is not your fault all the time, but once you're in it, it's your responsibility to fix it, because no one's going to fix it for you.
No.
And a lot of that work you're talking about and that we're talking about on a real estate, whatever level, on a relationship level, it starts internally. It starts with loving yourself and understanding and doing that work first. So enjoy, everyone. February is coming to a close. The month of love is going to be behind us, but we're going to be back very soon in your ears and in your faces, talking about life, love, and real estate. LaCressa, tell everyone where they can find you and everything that you do.
Ooh, where you can find me. So I'm a little bit of everywhere. So I am a realtor with KW in town. Our office is located in Midtown. You can reach me on social media at LAC Sales ATL. You can call me. You can email me. You can Google me, LaCressa Morrow, and honestly, all my information will pop up. And then let me help you with housing or anything that I can help you with. So looking forward to hearing from you, and hopefully you get to see us and get to know us and start trusting us and the things that comes out of our mouths, and have some fun with us as well. So
amen to that. Amen to that. Daniel Palmer, you can find me on all the socials. Daniel Palmer Mortgages. You can go to danielpalmermortgages.com to start your pre-approval process today. If you can afford a rent, you can afford a mortgage. It's my job to help you qualify. Make sure you guys, I work out of the same Keller Williams office as LaCressa, but if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, shoot us an email, shoot us a text. We're going to find different ways to help you guys out. And remember, life, love, and real estate, this is where a pithy tagline will go once we develop one. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good one. This was fun. Happy Black History Month, people.